Fashion's Role in Breast Cancer Advocacy with Serena Rovai and SafeCast. Para subtítulos en español, vaya a YouTube. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of SafeCast podcast. Today I am joined by Serena Rovai, my professor from Stanford in Florence, and we have a very special topic about fashion's intersection with women's health. Please, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you very much, Diba, and thank you very much to all of you to join us. I am Serena, and I'm joining you, very pleased, on this new session. I'm a professor in luxury brand management with a specific focus on sustainability and fashion at Excelia Business School in France. I'm visiting professor in different institutions, from ISTE in Portugal to Ulm University in Milan, and also, of course, very pleased to be visiting faculty at Stanford University.
Serena is highly specialized in Italian and French brands, and we had a lot of amazing experiences learning about it from her last quarter when I was in Florence. And today I'm really excited to learn about fashion's social sustainability aspects and talk a little bit about how they support health initiatives, especially women's health initiatives. And we want to just learn from your expertise. So first question would be to kind of define what social sustainability is. And when you advise fashion companies, how do you define social sustainability beyond just environmental impact?
Thank you very much. That's a very relevant question because we know that sustainability has become a trend and a phenomenon in our present days. And however, we acknowledge the fact that mainly we refer to sustainability from an environmental perspective, which would limit, we could say, sustainability, the role of sustainability, and the impact that sustainability can have for our planet and for our society. As you were rightly saying, sustainability is also composed by the social element, which is highly integrated in how it can impact our planet for a better life and a better health. So social sustainability is not only simply related to society justice. It's not only related, cannot be defined only with respect to what are those elements and programs associated to have a more just society, but also to the well-being, to a responsible well-being of people and a responsible well-being of women inside a company, but also outside a company. And this is one of the roles that also fashion companies at worldwide level should have when thinking about how to integrate social sustainability in their overall strategy and their overall company strategy, as we can see that most of for example, the Italian company that I'm consulting with or I'm researching and studying, in particular those who focus on the made in Italy, they identify the made in Italy as a strong component of social sustainability through the support that is given to the territories in which their communities of manufacturing plants, of their manufacturing factories, but also communities to the country of origin, or better, the territory of origin of their company they belong to, and the way in which they contribute to the well-being of those people that, of course, are part of the territory.
Yeah, that is a great answer. And to like recap it, for anyone listening, so sustainability has always just been seen through a lens of environmental and nature protection, but sustainability can mainly be broken down into three core areas of one is environmental, one is social, and one is governance. Within social, where our topic lies in, a lot of this has to go back to heritage and culture alongside as well like social welfare. But especially in Italy, it's very important that fashion companies are so built into the heritage and culture of that place, and that needs to be preserved. So, given the fact that fashion brands are often shaping culture and reaching communities within Italy and even like exporting culture outside when they expand to global markets uh through storytelling and identity, how can these fashion companies use that cultural influence to raise awareness about preventative women's health in a meaningful and responsible way?
Thank you for this question, Diba, and thank you for having recapped so well what we have seen also together in class. I mean, Diba was excellent and also so good and passionate in my class. Well,
Yeah.
certainly, as you were recapping, health management, and in particular in women assistant, is an important component of social sustainability. What I would like to underline is that unfortunately, until a few years ago, it was not the priority with respect to environmental sustainability or other also social sustainable actions inside a company. As well, preference was given to compensation and benefits, of course, that should be equal, or, for example, to workforce diversity, or also there was a priority given also to the workplace well-being at the workplace. We know that in particular in non-managerial positions, issues associated to a clean and a wellness-oriented workplace are still present in some countries, in some third-tier countries, but also in some developed countries, including developed countries as Italy or others. Consequently, of course, as I was saying, these were the priorities. Luckily, in the last years, there have been a reorientation towards also other elements of what social sustainability can be and of what an integrated form of social sustainability can be. Of what it can be composed of, and composed also of health management, of women health management that we see in fashion, in particular in the Italian context, are rising quite fast and are rising in particular in relation to their, as I was saying, territories. So these fashion companies, if you want, later we can also mention some examples, they are not only organizing after having assessed what is the health management situation in their territories, preventive actions, and a project with their local communities or with the local governments or administrations. But in some cases, we see that they are intervening directly by different types of donations or different types of support by creating centers where a specific knowledge can be shared about a prevention or a preventive actions that it is decided to do, as well as a center where, of course, those social categories more in need can rely on.
Yeah, and essentially, like we could kind of break it down into the internal initiatives that fashion companies can do within their own business and externally. So internally, because
Absolutely, absolutely. Internally, let's say that fashion companies, most of fashion companies, in particular, global players. We can quote some names. I think there are no problems, as Ferragamo or Cucinelli or Armani. Internally, in their companies, they have already started since a few years to put into place specific policies of health management support, not simply through specific compensation and benefits. So for example, additional health insurances for employees or the families, but which in a certain way nowadays we could consider the base of what it could be done. But they have started the last year to go out of their company, to assess how is the situation in the country at country level, in the region, at regional level, or at local administration level. And then, with respect to the situation, to act solo or to act with the local government and the local administration to give the appropriate support. Because of course, a question, well, I know we don't have a lot of times, but also a question is to provide the appropriate and right answer with respect to the needs that not only a country, but then a territory may have, in order not to replicate or duplicate what it's already existing in the territory.
yeah, and I think giving an example would help illustrate this a bit better. You mentioned Ferragamo, so maybe we can explain a bit about the collaboration between Ferragamo and Cori La Vita. Just for some context, Cori La Vita is the largest breast cancer nonprofit in Italy, and they organize annual walks and runs to raise funds for breast cancer research and care. And Ferragamo did a collaboration with them, I think last year, where they designed the shirts that Cori La Vita gives out to the participants in their run.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so we can
absolutely.
talk about that example. And actually, we have an episode coming up with the president of Cori La Vita, so that will be another episode for listeners to watch if they're interested in that.
Well, we know that Ferragamo, to use their words, okay, they own a lot to Florence, okay. They are very attached to Florence because Florence represents their heritage, their authenticity in craftsmanship, in quality, in the essence of the brand, and that they find a way to give back to Florence, okay, and they had, in fact, of course, an overall, they have a strategy, and then they have at spot actions with respect to the situation not only at country level, as I was saying, but also at city level. So they are very attached to Florence, they own a lot to Florence, and they give back. How they give back? Well, of course, they decided to do in a responsible, coherent way by analyzing who were the players that were acting in Florence. And by uniting themselves amongst family that I call mecenates, allow me these words to say, but how can I say, responsible mecenates that they want to give back by providing social, useful support. So, of course, Ferragamo decided with other players to contribute, to give back to Florence for breast cancer through Cori La Vita, and is doing this since a few years, but also at country level by providing also support to some oncology centers of excellence. We know that as different countries, we have in our health system, which is a public health system, but we have also both public and private center of excellence that are specialized on specific health issues and that they require, of course, financial support to improve their research. So Ferragamo, for example, a few years ago, if I remember well, at the end of the 2019 or 2020, they supported the oncology center at the San Raffaele Hospital in Milan, which is one of the center of excellence in the study of some oncology-related therapies, in particular therapies associated to breast cancer or to blood cancer. But then they did the same at local level through Cori La Vita with the local hospital in Florence. So with the Careggi Hospital, they have supported in this action not the research, but the technologies more. But we know that Careggi Hospital is a public hospital, and public hospital, of course, they also need very much as they give, free assistance for health, and consequently with a very high demand to the Italian and non-Italian citizens. Consequently, in Careggi, for example, they have decided to provide innovative technological instruments to have a screening of cancer, to have a early screening of cancer. We know that in the public health system, for example, waiting lists can be an issue because of the lack of numerous instruments and tools to detect a pathology. So they have acted and decided to act at this level. But of course, as I was saying, in this assessment that they have done of what are the requirements and where they could act, they have seen that, of course, for the oncology, there is a worldwide, we know very well, need, but there could have been in Florence also for another very specialized health issues, which is related to women, but which is also related in this case to boys, because I don't know if you're aware of it. Diba in Florence, there is a very unique hospital, a pediatric hospital, which is a foundation called the Meyer Foundation. And the Meyer Foundation is one of the main European hospital for assistance and health assistance and research for pediatric illnesses, from diabetes to allergies to cancer. So this wish to give back of Ferragamo to the city they belong to, Florence, well, also made them decide to support also scientific research for neonatal screening at the Meyer Hospital, and even to expand the hospital to become one of the main two or three pediatric center of excellence hospitals at European level that are existing at the moment. So I'm sorry, I've become very much details, but it's important also to explain, and Ferragamo was an example, but we could have also Armani, who also in particular for the oncological treatments for women is giving back, has given back a lot to his city, to Milan, that has become a center of excellence in other type of oncological pathologies, or even Cucinelli, that has decided to focus more on regenerative health. I went into details to give facts, not to give only words or arguments of discussion. Because when we talk about sustainability, it's highly relevant nowadays to be transparent and to give facts, to give certification, if we want, in environmental sustainability, but I would say in social sustainability, and in particular when it relates to well-being support, to give facts of actions, of projects that have been successfully implemented and through which logic they have been successfully implemented. These are not projects for, let's say, the privileged. These are projects for, we could just say, health management justice that could give health support, screening, and therapies, appropriate availabilities of preventing screening and therapies to any citizen that unfortunately can find himself in this situation, Italian or non-Italian.
Yeah, and thank you for going into detail with that because this is something that's not really talked about. Like we hear here and there, like Ferragamo, Armani is donating to a nonprofit to a hospital, but we don't really we're not told the details of that partnership. And so if we don't know the details, we can't really understand, is this partnership even gonna be beneficial for anyone? But what stood out to me about the Ferragamo case study, which you detailed out, was that they decided to do a health initiative in the city that they were born out of. So they understand that community really well. They understand the needs of that community and the actors that can help them achieve their social sustainability goals. And then the second thing was that they decided to give back to hospitals that are already like giving a lot of care to underserved populations. So there, and then with breast cancer, oncological care, these are conditions that although they're common, but there's still a long way to go with when it comes to awareness and doing that early screening. So, is there
Absolutely,
anything else you
absolutely.
wanted to add about like what stood out or the key lessons from Ferragamo?
I usually say that the key lesson is really what you can see with your eyes. You see with your eyes when you go to the breast screening centers sponsored by Cori La Vita. You see all those women that come and can have access to their screening that you don't say that in other situations they wouldn't have, because as you know in Italy we have a public system, so they would have had. But of course we know that unfortunately sometimes totally public systems, they may have limits in waiting list, in for specific exams, and in so doing, in those that they were the core issues, the core threats for women, well, they could give back. They could give back to everyone. They were not giving back to only their employees. They were not giving back only to their, let's say, privileged customers. They wanted to give back to all those territory that was supporting the development of their brand, or that in a certain way in a tradition and culture was originating their brand. And the same for this Meyer Hospital. In Meyer Hospital you see young young girls. You see newborn babies that are coming because thanks to Ferragamo, this has become a center of excellence, a center of excellence that you can see with your eyes in a few years has expanded its dimension and its services. And this, as you were saying, sometimes, we only hear, okay, this brand, this fashion brand has given a certain amount of money to this project. Another brand has given this certain amount of money, but we don't know exactly what then the result has been. Is this was only what we call pink or red washing,
Yeah.
or it was reality. So what we were talking more about Ferragamo also because we are going to have, the interview with Coari La Vita, but we could mention also Diesel, who is doing this in another territory of Italy, the north of Italy, and Renzo Rosso, his wife, and his family, they are also supporting in this different way. What is interesting is really, how can I say, a take back home in all this is that, of course, they shouldn't replace the government, what the government has to do for us, okay? But they are trying to support the government as in a certain way mecenates from the Renaissance they were doing in the past to make our society and the well-being of its inhabitant better in those areas that are putting at risk the life of its citizen. So the take back home should be this, if any company, any fashion company at worldwide level was reflecting, I know that also in other fields I know, for example, in Silicon Valley, you have had in the last year great, I mean, mecenates that they given away only to support foundations that they can help health and unhealth projects at worldwide level. But unfortunately, this is not sufficiently, let's say, expanded and integrated into what a responsible, social, sustainable strategy of a fashion company should be. So the take back home should be this. I'm sorry if, I'm talking longer, but is to have for you that you're going to be the future leaders, to try to stimulate present and future business realities, to support, to give back to the cities, to the territories, to the communities that have originated them, to make them more, of course, responsible leaders. And being a responsible leaders also means take care, of course, of the health, physical and mental health of its society.
Thank you for that very detailed answer. And just to wrap it up, you can answer in like one sentence. How would you recommend like more fashion companies to start doing social sustainability initiatives geared towards women's health?
Well, I would say that they should very simply start by assessing what are the main problems in their territories, what are the most urgent problems, and what are the most complex for different reasons to be solved. And of course, with this respect, then start evaluating and assessing solution and implement a strategy which shouldn't be only corrective, but that should be also preventive. So when I see preventive, what I want to say is, of course, research, preventive screenings, and so forth, and not only corrective by, of course, also essential and relevant, but not only doing actions in financing purchase of instruments